What a shame. The poor guy was stabbed 23 times.
Really? Well, that reminds me of some old play that I read.
A play?
Yes, it took place during the Roman times. I believe his name was William Shakespeare?
You mean William Shakespeare?
That's the one. Did you know that there were multiple ways to spell his name?
No, I didn't know that. So, so who is William Shakespeare?
William Shakespeare was believed to be born on or around April 23rd, 1564. William Shakespeare was baptized at Holy Trinity Church in Stratford-upon-Avon. Shakespeare was born to John Shakespeare and Mary Arden. Shakespeare had 5 siblings, 2 sisters named Joan and Judith, and 3 younger brothers, which were named Gilbert, Richard, and Edmund. It is likely that Shakespeare attended King's New School in Stratford. However, as the records of the school were lost, no one can be certain of whether this is true. Speaking of lost things, between 1587 and 1592, there are almost no records of Shakespeare's life. It is unknown of what happened to Shakespeare during those years. These are referred to as the lost years. On November 28, 1582, Shakespeare married Anne Hathaway. Wait, no, wrong one. Anne Hathaway, who was pregnant with their daughter Susanna at the time. 2 years later, Anne Hathaway and William Shakespeare had 2 more children, who were twins. They were named Judith and Hamnet. Sadly, Hamnet died at the age of 11 to unknown causes. Shakespeare was a part of a group. He was a managing partner of a group called the Chamberlain's Men, which was later renamed to the King's Men. This was the acting group that Shakespeare worked with. It was discovered that Shakespeare's work may not have survived if it wasn't for 2 of Shakespeare's best friends, John Heminges and Henry Condell, who created an anthology of Shakespeare's works. This anthology was dubbed the First Folio. There are apparently 233 known surviving copies. However, there are only about 40 copies that are complete with no damages or missing pages. On April 23rd, 1616, Shakespeare died. Shakespeare's oldest daughter, Suzanne, was the last of the Shakespeare generation to live, before she later died childless. The play Julius Caesar, written by Shakespeare, was believed to have been written in 1599, as the first performance was mentioned by Thomas Plater the Young in 1599. However, the play wasn't officially published until 1623, when it was put into the First Folio.
Some key characters in the play Julius Caesar are Julius Caesar, Brutus, and Cassius. Julius Caesar was a Roman military leader. He has returned to Rome after a successful military campaign in Spain. Caesar is someone who demonstrates that he wants to be the supreme ruler of all of Rome. The noblemen of Rome do not approve of Caesar's ambitious nature. Even though Caesar acts reluctant and unwilling to become Rome's king, it is implied that his ulterior motive is to become king. People do not know if he would be a good or an evil king. Brutus is one of the noblemen of Rome. Brutus is well respected by many of the people of Rome and is an exemplary citizen. Brutus is a good friend with Julius Caesar, but Brutus is worried that Julius Caesar's ambition could lead to a tyrannical dictatorship. Brutus is worried that the people of Rome would suffer under a king. His worry for the people of Rome leads him to join in the conspiracy to murder Julius Caesar. Cassius is a general that has served in many military campaigns with Julius Caesar. Cassius is a very shrewd and manipulative man. He is not motivated by honor like Brutus, but rather he is motivated by his hatred of Julius Caesar. Cassius is able to convince Brutus that Caesar is becoming too powerful by delivering forged letters to Brutus's household that state that Caesar is growing too powerful and that the people of Rome do not want him to be their king. The play begins with multiple plebeians eagerly awaiting Caesar's triumphal arrival in Rome. 2 noblemen, Flavius and Marullus, are annoyed by the plebeians' veneration of Julius Caesar. Flavius and Marullus order the people to take down the decorations for Caesar's arrival. Caesar arrives in Rome and is warned by a soothsayer to beware the Ides of March. Cassius relates to Brutus that Caesar almost drowned in a river, but Cassius saved him. This shows Brutus that Caesar is not a god. Cassius also plants the seeds of conspiracy inside Brutus. Caesar is offered a crown to become king, but he refuses. Brutus and the other noblemen leave for their houses and promise to discuss Caesar's ambition the next day. During the evening, storms, earthquakes, and other strange phenomena occur. Cassius meets with other conspirators at night and is unconcerned with the omens that are occurring. Cassius decides to send fake letters to fully sway Brutus to ally with the conspirators. Brutus decides to join the conspirators in assassinating Caesar. The conspirators enlist the help of several elderly senators and noblemen to raise the repute of their cause. Portia, Brutus's wife, wants to know why Brutus is acting so strangely. Brutus does not disclose to his wife the conspiracy, but promises that he will tell her sometime in the future. Julius Caesar is offered different interpretations of a sacrifice. He chooses to believe the positive interpretation. Artemidorus writes a letter and waits for Caesar to pass on the way to the capital. Artemidorus attempts to warn Caesar of the impending attempt on his life, but Cassius steers Caesar towards the capital. The conspirators are worried that their plan has been foiled because a fellow senator wishes them well in their endeavor. At the capital, Metellus presses Caesar to allow his exiled brother to become a citizen of Rome again. Caesar refuses his pleas and is stabbed by the conspirators. We are acting out part of Act 3, Scene 1.
The Ides of March are come.
Aye, Caesar, but not gone.
Hail Caesar. Read the schedule.
O Caesar, read mine first, for mine's a suit that touches Caesar near. Read it, great Caesar.
What touches us, ourselves, shall be last served.
Delay not, Caesar. Read it instantly. What urge you put your petitions in the street? Come to the Capitol.
I wish your enterprise today may thrive.
What enterprise, Popilius?
Fare you well. What said Popilius?
He'd wish today our enterprise may thrive.
Look how he makes to Caesar. Mark him.
Casca, be sudden, for we fear prevention. Brutus, what shall be done? If this be known, Cassius or Caesar never shall turn back, for I will slay myself.
Cassius, be constant. Appius Lenus speaks not of our purpose. He smiles, and Caesar doth not change.
Trebonius knows his time. For you, look, Brutus. He draws Mark Antony out of the way.
We ready? What is now amiss that Caesar and his court shall now redress? I must prevent thee, climber. These couchings and these lowly courtesies might fire the blood of ordinary men and turn up preordinance and decree. To the law of children, be not fond to think that Caesar bears such rebel blood that will be thawed from the true quality with which melleth fools, I mean sweet words. Look, crooked courtesies and base spaniel falling. Thy brother by decree is banished. If thou dost bend and pray and fawn for him, I spurn thee like a cur out of my way. No, Caesar doth not wrong. No, without cause will he be satisfied.
I kiss thy hand, Caesar, but not in flattery, desiring only that Publius Cimber may have immediate freedom of repeal.
What, Brutus? I could be well moved if I were as you. If I could pray to move, prayers would move me. But I am constant as the northern star, of whose true fixed and resting quality. There is no fellow in the firmament. The skies are painted with the umbered sparks. They are all fire, and every one doth shine. But there but in one, all doth hold his place. So in the world, 'tis furnished well with men, and men are flesh and blood and apprehensive. Yet the number I do not know, but one that is unassailable holds on his rank. Unshaken of motion, and that I am he. Let me a little show it, even in this, that was constant climber should be banished, and constant do remain to keep him so.
O Caesar,
Wilt thou lift up Olympus?
great Caesar! Yeah!
Et tu, Blut?
Liberty, freedom! Tyranny is dead! Run hence, proclaim it in the streets!
Come to the common pulpits and cry out, liberty, freedom, enfranchisement.
People and senators, be not affrighted. Stand stiff. Ambition's debt is paid.
Mark Antony, who is Caesar's friend, realizes that Caesar has been killed. Antony tells Brutus and the other conspirators that if what they did was noble, then he will join their cause. Antony and the conspirators decide that Caesar will have a funeral. Antony warns Octavius, Caesar's adopted son, to stay away from Rome for a while. Brutus speaks first at the funeral and vilifies Caesar. The people agree with Brutus until Antony is allowed to speak. Antony tells the people that Caesar had a will and gave each citizen money, access to public gardens, and amenities. This news reveals that Caesar was a good man and would have been a magnificent king. The plebeians revolt and drive the conspirators from the city. Octavius arrives in Rome. Antony and Octavius make a list of the conspirators and prepare to battle them. Brutus, Cassius, and the other conspirators have left the city and prepared an army to fight Antony and Octavius. Brutus and Cassius argue in a tent, but eventually reconcile. Brutus is told that his wife Portia has died of unknown reasons. Cassius leaves Brutus in the tent, and Brutus wants to listen to music. His musicians fall asleep as a ghost enters the tent. Brutus is extremely afraid, and his servants cry out in their sleep. The ghost tells Brutus that they shall meet again at Philippi. Brutus, Cassius, and the other conspirators meet Antony and Octavius at Philippi. They talk before the battle commences. Brutus's forces overwhelm Octavius's forces at the same time that Antony's forces surround Cassius's forces. As Brutus's forces loot Octavius's camp, Cassius is overrun. Cassius kills himself to avoid being captured. Brutus keeps fighting, but he is losing ground to Antony and Octavius. Eventually, Brutus gives up and kills himself as well. When Brutus's body is found, Antony and Octavius exclaim that Brutus was the only noble conspirator and that he will be honored according to his great virtue.
This section of Julius Caesar is one of tragedy and triumph. The triumph throughout the play is when Caesar is on his rise to power. Julius Caesar is shown to be an almost godlike figure whom everyone loves. A part of being a figure liked by many also draws the least expected of enemies. These enemies are usually motivated by greed. However, there is a significant figure in this play that is not motivated by greed. Though many of Caesar's murderers envied him, there was one who thought of Caesar as a friend, and he did not kill Caesar out of greed, but out of love for his country. Caesar's friend Brutus was a man who, driven by the thought that he was making his country a better place for everyone, if the man he called friend were dead. This is tragic because in the end Brutus killed his friend for nothing. Brutus's government would turn into an empire from that of a republic that he so loved. Brutus will die knowing that in trying to prevent the fall of the Roman Empire, he would assure that the republic would fall. Brutus essentially sealed the fate of his worst fear through his own actions, which in itself is a tragedy. This play teaches us a lesson, like all of Shakespeare's plays. The play Macbeth is also a play where the main character's deaths are the result of their own actions, through the fear of trying to prevent an outcome. While trying to prevent these outcomes, the characters make decisions that will result in their future downfalls, of which they were trying to avoid. The lesson taught in these plays is that the actions you take to prevent an undesired outcome are often the actions that seal that destiny.
Many professional critics initially disliked the play. Italian neoclassicalists did not believe that the play contained all the elements that it should have. However, in the late 1700s, the Italian neoclassical criticisms of the play were called into question. The play Julius Caesar received much more praise than it initially received. The new critics praised the depth of Brutus's character. This newfound admiration for the play continues into our present time. All of us enjoyed the play Julius Caesar. We enjoyed the nuanced and deep character of Brutus. The play was also entertaining because you never knew who was going to switch sides. We thoroughly enjoyed this play and agreed with the more modern critics that Julius Caesar is truly an innovative tale of historical betrayal and civil war. We encourage all of you to read Shakespeare's Julius Caesar and judge it for yourselves.